What's up, everyone? We're back again. Another episode of FGC Behind the Smoke coming to you pre-recorded, not live. um, Boris is still in Australia as of the time of this recording. It's wintertime over there, and yeah, it looks cold. You got like a big beard and like a Mac jacket on or something.
Yeah, dude, I'm so weak now. It's like 10 degrees actually. It's Canadian warmth, but Australian
Yeah.
cold, and yeah, it's terrible. Uh,
Do people walk around with like parkas and stuff on in the
oh yeah,
wintertime
man,
there?
they got toques, and I'm like looking at them, like, what's going on here? But um,
Yeah.
yeah, mentoring a probie.
Before we started recording this, we tried to record this episode, and the introduction, Boris and I kept talking over each other. So we're trying to do a better job. So this is
Yeah,
take two.
yeah. Sorry guys, we're trying to do a 1-2 thing going on from halfway around the world, and if it's not working, well, that is what it is.
Yeah. Just keep listening.
Yeah, it gets better, we
Okay.
promise.
Yeah. Okay. So our episode topic today is
Mentoring a probie.
yeah. So we're kind of going to go over now you've kind of not kind of now you're out of that probationer role. You're kind of the next junior firefighter. And we're going to talk about how to mentor your probie, the importance of it, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'll preface this by saying, we're not the experts on training a probationer. We just try to do what's best for our crew, our fire department, and hopefully not die on a call. You're gonna have
Yeah.
to you're gonna have to decide what's best for your crew and your fire department when you're mentoring your probationer. Yeah, just want to make sure you guys understand that. And I'm sure I've ruined a couple of probationers also, even though I've tried to build them up. So take all this with a grain of salt, but we hope it helps you guys kind of mentor down the line here.
Well, it does happen though, right? Where you try your best with a probationer or something, and sometimes it's not the right fit. But as long as your intentions are good and you're trying to build them up as much as you can, and try and get them to that standard that's required, that the public and the community requires of us and expects us to have, then you can only do so much, right? It is kind of up to them in a way to take that mentorship that you're providing for them, and to run with it and to excel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you could take a horse to water, right? But you can't make it drink kind of thing. So you can only give as much guidance and help as you can, but it's on them if they want to do that. If you want to take the mentorship, and because you do need to, as a probationer, we've said this in a previous episode, like you need to study on your days off, right? You need to put in the time. Yeah, so you could take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink kind of thing is what we're saying, right? So you can try to mentor and train a probie, but if they're not taking that time, at home to study or get better when they need to, there's not much you can do there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? Like we said, you can only do so much, and it's kind of up to them to take that and run with it, and try to impress you and try to live up to that standard, right? So yeah. So why don't we talk about setting the tone from day one, like when you first meet your new probationer.
Yeah, day one when they come into the fire hall, most likely the captain will set his or her own, expectations, and you basically just kind of go off that, right? You kind of go off what the crew wants, what the captain wants to see out of that probationer, and you might add a little bit more of your own spin to it, but still having that general vision of the crew and of the captain's vision, right? But what,
Yeah.
what what do you usually do when you get a probationer? What's your chat to them?
Yeah, like you said, like typically the captain is going to kind of set the tone, and then um sit with the probationer as a crew and kind of lay out expectations and stuff like that, right? I, I also have my own expectations, and typically, it's in line with what the cruise is. But I'm gonna take them under my wing. I'm gonna kind of show them the ropes of like, how the truck checks are gonna go, what time things need to be on by. Go over what I expect out of them as far as like attitude, performance, work ethic, all that kind of stuff, right? So that way, if you do that on day one and you set that expectation, um, now they have something to go off of, right? As opposed to, say, you waiting for like, a couple of shifts before you go, oh, hey, by the way, like, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right, or we need to see more of this from you. If you haven't already told them that on their first day, then, it's kind of on you a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not setting them up for success, essentially, if you don't lay it out on the first day, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I like to tell whenever I have a probationer, I do like to tell them like, hey, I don't know everything. This is a career that you're constantly going to be learning, and you're not going to know everything. But there are people on the crew who, what I don't know, they might know, and what they don't know, I might know, right? So, for example, I'm not the biggest rope guy, right?
Mhm.
So I've had probationers before where I've been like, hey, I can do all the basic knots that are required, but like if you're trying to learn or you want to learn something more advanced, like that's not really my wheelhouse, right?
Mhm.
But we can learn together and figure it out, and I'm sure somebody on the crew will know and they can show us, and it also provides the opportunity for me to learn something new as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point. You're never going to know everything, and it is a job of constant learning. So just making them understand that making mistakes is okay, and not knowing everything is okay is a good way to set the tone as well. Um,
Yeah, exactly. And like you want to let them know that like you want them to be able to make those mistakes on the drill square, and while you're training and drilling, because um it's an opportunity for them to learn from it as opposed to making that mistake on the fire ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way with my probies. Like when we get them, we might joke around, we might make mistakes at the hall on the training ground, but when it's go time, when that call drops, we all expect to be at our, best behavior and best performance, essentially, right? Um,
Yeah.
an- Another thing I expect from probationers coming on is, you're coming onto this job with 1001s, right? You have your basic firefighting skills, or you told us you
Yeah.
do, right? I expect those basic firefighting skills to be pretty dialed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you probably already have your 1001, and even if you say somehow got hired without it, because I know there's departments around that don't necessarily require it, but you
Mhm.
are trained to that department standard, right? Like you're not just gonna get a job and have them be like, okay, go to the fire hall now, right? Like there's a lot of training involved before you can even enter the fire hall, right? So you need to understand like the basics of the job, like the basics of pulling a hose, like how to do it properly, the basics of fire science, right? These are all things that as a probationer coming in, this is things that they should know.
Yeah, some of the first questions that I'll ask my probationer is like, well, what's backdraft, right? What's flashover? What are signs of backdraft? Because those are basic things that you should be coming in knowing. And if you don't, well, we need to get that into you right away. Because if we drop a fire in the next 5 minutes and you don't know what signs of a backdraft are, that's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, just having that basic understanding and making sure that they have that. Because if they don't, then it's a whole different thing, right? Because then now you have to kind of teach them some of the more basic things when really you want to be able to start going over some more important stuff when it comes to actual firefighting skills, right?
Yeah. And on that note, like, what are some things that you would prefer to teach your probie? rather than teaching them the basics they should already know.
Yeah, like so one of the well, there's a couple things, but one is like basic victim rescue out of a fire, like different carries, like how you can drag somebody out in different scenarios, mayday procedures, fire ground survival stuff, understanding that kind of stuff, because that stuff's so important, right? Like, you could have a probationer come in, it's their first 10 minutes on the job, and you could get a fire come in where somebody's trapped inside and they're on the rig with you, right? So for me, being able to train them on that kind of stuff early into their probation is really important.
Yeah, makes sense. And that's not something that they necessarily will come in knowing already. So it's good to get that in as well. Yeah, I totally agree. Like knowing what loon stands for, right? It
Yeah.
is technically 1001s, but it might be something that they didn't really practice as much or understand in
Or
real life.
yeah,
Yeah.
or they forgot or whatever, right? But those are really important things that they should know. And if they don't know, that's probably some of the stuff that you're going to want to go over with them, kind of day one, or at least in that first set that they're on, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you know what, like we talked earlier about like setting an expectation and setting a standard and stuff like that. I'm not really someone who um, wants the probationer to feel like everything they're doing is not good enough. If it's not good enough, tell them, hey, like you need to step this up. But if they're doing good on something, tell them. Just be like, yeah, hey, you know what? That was really good. I know there's some departments and some crews out there that um, no matter how good the probationer is, they will constantly be like, no, not good enough, not good enough. And I get that they want you to constantly be improving and constantly getting better, but you also do motivate people in a bit by giving them a little bit of praise, right? Like say, for example, day two, you're drilling, taking a hydrant, and they don't do a very good job of it, right? Okay, let's get some reps in on doing this. And then next shift, the first thing that we're doing is you're gonna take a hydrant. And
Mhm.
they come in for that next shift and they take a hydrant and they do a good job. Tell them, be like, hey, you know what, that was way better. Like that's I can see that you're taking this seriously and that you're improving. Like I'm proud of you for obviously going home and going over this, right? And taking it seriously. When you do stuff like that, you tend to get better results, right? As opposed to, if someone's on probation, they just constantly feel like they're being shit on. Um, they're it's going to be hard for them to give you those results, I feel, in my opinion.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And also, it makes it very hard for them to understand what your standard is if you're always telling them it's bad, right? Um,
So
it,
true.
and how are they supposed to make it better, right? So always give them constructive criticism, make them understand why they're doing things. That's another huge thing, right? We're not making you do this because we're picking on you. We're making you do this because you need to be able to work under stressful conditions, for example, right?
Yeah.
Or like we're blacking you out for this drill because we want you to understand that when you're inside of a fire, you can't see anything. That's why you have a hood over your head. It's not because we're trying to bully you or trying to make this harder for you, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's such a good point. Like you want to be able to explain to them why you're doing things a certain way. Um, because they, like, who knows, like they might not have any friends in the fire service or any previous exposure to the fire service. They may have just, hey, like, applied and got hired without really knowing much about the fire service. So explaining that to them, so that way they're aware of why we do things a certain way. It's like when you're doing a drill with a probationer, like you want them to feel an element of stress,
Hmm.
and then you want them to be able to work, like continue to work and continue to do what they're doing while being stressed, right? So it's not, you're not picking on them, you're doing it because when shit hits the fan on a call and they get stressed out, you don't want them to just freeze and panic. You want them to be able to keep moving forward and do what they have to do in order to mitigate that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my like favorite examples is like I'll speak really loudly, when we're doing drills or we're doing something like ladders, right? And I'll be like, I'm not yelling at you, but this is the record of your voice or the sound of your voice where it should be because there's going to be so many different sounds at the fire, right? There's going to be an engine running, pumps, there's going to be fans, there's going to be guys, potentially chainsawing side of buildings. Like you need to be loud, right?
Yeah,
So if you can explain why you're doing certain things, it just makes it easier on your probationer to understand that you're teaching them or you're mentoring them in certain ways for a reason. You're not just being a dick. You're not trying to intimidate them. There's always a rhyme and reason. It also keeps you in check. Like if you can't explain to the probationer why you're doing something, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it, you
that's
know?
so true. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, exactly. Don't ask them to a question that you don't even know the answer to, right?
Mhm.
If you're going to ask them something like, say, we were talking earlier about, ask them what a backdraft is. If you don't know what it is, you shouldn't be asking them that, right? And I mean, every firefighter should obviously know what that is. I'm just using that as an example, right? But
Yeah.
and never ask them to do something that you wouldn't do yourself, right? Mentoring a probationer is really your first kind of glimpse into a bit of a leadership role in a sense, right?
Mhm.
And you got to think about the type of leader that you want to be, right? If you're telling your probationer like, "Hey, we're gonna pull, uh, you know, hose for 4 hours today," um, get it. You need to be able to do the same thing. And if you can demonstrate through your examples that, hey, like I'm doing this too, and I'm not asking you to do something that I wouldn't do, well, then you're kind of setting the tone, right?
Yeah, and the fire service is awesome for that because everyone from probationer to the captain uh, is essentially either done that job or is doing that job, right? Like captains used to clean toilets, uh, no different than probationers are doing right now, right? So we're all in this together. We've all done what you're doing. So just get on with the program and do a good job, and we'll get on as a crew very well, you know? Um,
Yeah.
I think demonstrating that, like you said, you can do this too, and you've done this in the past, just shows them that what they're doing isn't odd. You're not picking on them. It's all part of the job, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also, the way that you mentor someone is gonna be a direct reflection of yourself, right? So, because you got to remember, you're gonna have to work together for the next 20 years, 25 years, possibly, right?
Hmm.
If you're just being a dick for the sake of being a dick, they're gonna remember that, and you're only a year ahead of them, right? Um, you got to keep that in mind, right? Because I'm sure across every department there's someone like that who just wants to kind of big league a probationer, even though they've only been on for 6 months longer, maybe a year longer, or whatever. Um, they're going to remember that, right?
Hmm.
So you need to realize that, yeah, you do have to be tough on them in certain scenarios for sure, and like we said, with those expectations, but you also have to work together for the next 20 plus years, right? So you kind of want to build that relationship as well.
Totally. That person that you're kind of big leaguing right now is going to be your driver in a few years, or it's going to be your lieutenant when you're a captain in a few years. Like, don't be trying to put yourself above them in any way. You need to show them that, yeah, you just need to be a better mentor, right? Essentially, because it's never going to stop. You're going to be with them throughout your whole career. And like you said, they're not going to forget that. I wouldn't forget if someone was picking on me that's only been on the job 6 months more than me, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Have some rhyme and reason to why you do what you do with them, right?
Yeah. What's a way, Adamo, that you mentor a probie on a call?
So I guess it kind of depends on what stage of probation they're in, right? If it's their first couple days, couple shifts,
Mhm.
typically depending on the call, uh, I typically will take the lead on say it's a medical call. I'll take the lead on it just to kind of show them, bedside manner and kind of like how we operate because and everyone can probably attest to this, but what you learn in courses and in school is all very theoretical, right? And
Mhm.
in the real world application, it can be different depending on the scenario, right? So typically, I like to demonstrate like how we do things, right? So I'll run those first few calls until get them to kind of back me up on it, right? Like, oh, hey, can you take a blood pressure for me? Can you pass me the pulse ox? That kind of stuff. Just get them to start with like handing you the equipment and that kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
and then from there, as they get a bit more confident, comfortable with just going to calls and talking to people and that kind of stuff, then you gradually let them, uh, you know, take over, and then they can kind of run that call, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. Kind of show them the standard because there is a huge difference between how you do things in a classroom and how you do it in person. Like, I'm sure you've done this before as well, but like when we go to an overdose, I'm not going to run it the way we do it in the classroom. My head's going to be a lot more on a swivel. I'm going to be careful where I step, where I stand, where I put my hands, how close I'm going to get to that patient, all those kinds of things, right? Just because of a safety issues involved. So, um, that's
Yeah,
something that we always talk to probationers about. Well, I know I do when they're brand new is, keep your head on a swivel, stay safe because you're not trained or you haven't been on the job long enough to know what some potential dangers might be, right?
yeah, yeah. That's a really good point, Boris. And also telling them like, hey, if you see something unsafe that could potentially happen, um, you know, we always say two ears, one mouth, but like if it's a safety thing, that's when it's totally acceptable for you to butt in and say something, right?
Mhm.
Like just for example, like let's say we're at an overdose and I go to move the patient and I don't see that there's a needle, right where like I'm going to put my hand, but the probationer sees that, right? Like I would want them to be like, "Yo, hey man, like hold up, there's a needle right there," right?
Yeah.
So you definitely want them to at least feel comfortable enough that they know that their safety and the crew's safety is in everyone's best interest. And if there is an unsafe situation, don't be afraid to let us know.
Yeah, and that whole like, unethical, unlawful, unsafe thing, like always like always say something if you see one of those three things. Bring it up your chain of command, tell the next junior guy, talk to me. You want to be, if you're mentoring a probationer, you want to be that avenue where they can approach you, right? They can talk, they can come up to you and ask something without being afraid of repercussions or spreading it as a rumor or anything like that either, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you're their next level of communication. So you want to have them feel comfortable enough to come and talk to you. And if they have questions or if say they messed up on something and they, want to come let you know like, hey, I accidentally did this. What do you think I should do? It's your job if you're that junior firefighter who's mentoring them to help them out and guide them in that right direction, right?
Yeah, and never sewer them. Again, it's kind of like that, they're not gonna forget that. Look out for them if, they messed up on something, try to mitigate it before you pass it on to the next person on your chain of command. You want to be able to work together as a team, and you want that probation to be able to come to you with stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What are some standards that you typically set, Boris, like when it comes to maybe not so much when it comes to being on calls and drilling, but like maybe more like social stuff around the fire hall?
Social stuff around the firewall. Well, I come from a military background, so obviously chain of command is big for me. Being able to go to the next person if you have a question and then go from there. Just hustling, like showing us you want to be there, right? Uh, we don't know you. You have, 6 months to a year to prove yourself that you want to be here. Show us that you want to be here. Show us that, like you were saying before, if we say something sucks, we'll improve it, right? If you don't know something, we'll know it for next time, right?
Yeah.
Just the attitude. I don't care if you can't tie a certain knot or if you don't know, all parts of the ladder or how to pull line perfectly. That's fine. We can learn that. We can teach that. Uh, but if your attitude is crap, well, I'm sorry, but eventually, I'm gonna kind of write you off if your attitude's shit.
Yeah, for sure. And attitude's everything, right? Like we said, like your probationer is gonna mess up. It happens, mistakes happen. But if they just have a bad attitude and they're not willing to take that constructive criticism and try and learn from it and try and improve, there's not a ton that you can do about that. Like, you definitely have that talk with them and be like, hey, listen, like we've we've had this talk about you needing to improve on this and you should know this. You're displaying a poor attitude. This is something that you need to improve on. Have that talk with them. But at the end of the day, like, that's the ball's in their court, right?
Hmm. And I've had junior firefighters who are buddies of mine come to me and they're like, "Hey, I'm having a problem with my probation, or I'm having a problem with a classmate who's just not getting it." You know, whether that's in like the fire academy or they're at the same fire hall during probation or whatever. And I just tell them like, look, like you can only do so much. You could try to help them. You could try to mentor them a little bit. Try to take them out of a hole if they're in it, but if they keep digging, they're adults. Like it's their career, it's their name. At the end of the day, like if they want to build that kind of name for themselves and that kind of career where they're known as, the lazy person or somebody who doesn't care, well, it's on them at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can only do so much, and if I'm sure if you have a probationer that's, like if you're in this mentorship position and you're listening to this and you have a probationer that's not doing well and it's just not not progressing and not getting better, it's frustrating, right?
Hmm. And like we said at the very start of this episode, like you're not going to know everything. You're not going to potentially be the best mentor out there. Maybe that's just it. Maybe your crew is not the best fit for them. And they leave your crew to a different crew and improve in a different way and they click much better, right? It happens sometimes. I mean, I don't see it that often, honestly. Like if somebody has a crappy attitude, it kind of follows them to the next crew. But yeah, sometimes it could be just a compatibility issue with your crew, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, right. Like, there's a lot of different personalities within the fire service, right? And but yeah, like you said, Boris, like I haven't seen that happen too often, but typically, if somebody has a bad attitude and an attitude problem, there's not there's typically no changing that. You
Hmm.
know, I don't want to say never because obviously, there is a small possibility, but I feel like that's something that's ingrained in them that you can't really do anything about. You can try your best, but it might not change.
Yeah, sometimes unfortunately it takes a major event for them to get humbled and change their attitude, like screwing up at a fire or a different kind of call, having some kind of conflict at work that just blows out of proportion. Uh, Unfortunately, that sometimes has to happen for them to change their attitude. But like you said, there's only so much you can do. And yeah, it's their career, right? They're adults. So it is what it is.
Yeah. I think the takeaways from this episode though is put the effort in to build them up and to bring them up to the standard that is required.
Mhm.
Um, treat them with respect, but also hold them accountable as well, right?
Mhm.
Um, and just in order to be a good mentor, I feel like you need to be you need to have been a good probationer as well, right? So if you're a good probationer, you kind of know what that's supposed to look like, right? If let's just say, and it happens, right? Like let's just say, you weren't the best probationer, but then after probation, you took a huge interest in the job and you started to really improve yourself. You just got to keep that in mind, right? Like where you're at now is where maybe you should have been before, and that's kind of where you have to bring them to.
Yeah, absolutely. Learn with that probationer. Get better yourself. Don't just focus 100% on making the probationer better. Make yourself better in the process as well, right? If your department is using a new kind of SCBA, well, this is your chance to learn more about it with your probationer, right? Because they're gonna be expected to know a lot more. So yeah, use that opportunity to get better along with them. And like Adamo said, treat them with respect, be fair, line out the expectations and go from there.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have much more to add, Boris?
And if none of that works, beat them. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Definitely don't
yeah,
do that. But
yeah. You'll either get fired or you might get promoted. It really depends.
yeah. But yeah, and they are a reflection of you. So if you have, 5 bad probationers in a row, well, maybe it's something you're doing wrong. So just always be able to self-reflect on probationers and improve with each one, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So we have just created our Patreon program and it's online. We'll put a link in the description of this episode. It's got all our freebies on there. So it's got resume templates, the interview checklist,
the competitive edge checklist.
Yeah, competitive edge checklist.
And we're also going to be diving into more in-depth interview episodes and hiring process stuff. And we're going to be posting it on there. It really does help us out because then we're able to pay Francesco for producing this podcast. If it wasn't for him, we'd be hooped.
You guys missed the part where we were just trying to turn this microphone on before this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we wouldn't be anywhere without him. So we'd like to start paying him a lot more.
And it's also going to be a way for us to just upgrade to better audio equipment, better cameras, better lighting, and all that kind of stuff to bring you guys a better experience with this podcast.
Yeah, and that was your idea actually, Damo, with the whole going over every interview question kind of in depth and really getting into the interview panel stuff.
Yeah, we'll be going into that in really great detail, really breaking apart the questions and just talking about like what they're actually asking in these questions, right? And yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a lot of info, a lot of really, really good info.
And if it's not, let us know. We also have a chat group in there as well on Patreon.
That's right.
So if there's, guests you want us to see, bring on, or if there's questions you want us to ask or talk about on the podcast, you're more than welcome to ask us on there.
Yeah, for sure. And like when it comes to those behavioral / situational type questions, we can break down a question and talk about it for probably half an hour.
Yeah.
Right. Just one question.
Easily.
So there's going to be a lot of really good info on that. And like we said, it's going to really help support the podcast so we can upgrade better equipment and also keep Francesco around so that way there is a podcast.
Chaining him down to the table would be too cruel.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, right on, guys. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, share, subscribe, or whatever they say.
All the new stuff.
Yeah, all that new stuff. Yeah. So we hope everyone's enjoying their summer. And who knows, Boris? By the time this episode airs, we might be fathers.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
So maybe the next episode will it'll be a bit of an introduction into fatherhood as a firefighter.
Yeah, mentoring a newborn.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's kind of the same as mentoring a probationer.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, right on, guys. Have a good one.
Cheers.